Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Barely. Okay. Good evening. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. In the audience, can you hear me? Okay. How about now? Better. Okay. Thank you. First of all, welcome everybody. It's nice to see such a great attendance at this meeting. This is awesome. So welcome to the second board meeting of this year for the U.S. section of the International Boundary Water Commission Citizens Forum Board. So the first meeting was held back, I think, in April this year, and that was held in El Paso. And we're trying to get around different areas. So this time it's in Las Cruces. So that's why we're here. But again, I appreciate everybody being here. We have a good agenda to go through, and I'll walk you through what we're going to be covering here and sort of some of the ground rules in terms of how we're running the meeting. But by way of introduction, I'll start with myself. I'm Gilbert Mesa. I'm co-chair of this board, and in a second, I have my co-chair introduce himself as well. I am a native Las Cruces. I live in El Paso now, but I still consider myself a New Mexican. And I was born and raised actually out in Fair Acres off of Shalem Colony Trail, and still have a family farm in that area. So I'm still very much attached to Las Cruces and to Doña Ana County and to the rural area. So, Sal?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your patience. My name is Suleiman Masood, and I am the co-chair also on this board. I am a civil engineer. I'm self-employed in El Paso, Texas. My company is Del Rio Engineering, and I'm also involved with the El Paso Association of Builders for about 21 years. So my interest with this board came about when the levees were deemed uncertified by FEMA, and USIBWC got on with it, and they started working on the reconstruction of the levees, and here I am 15 years later, I'm still on that board. So thank you very much, and maybe give the opportunity to the rest of the board members to introduce themselves. Start here.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Mark Calamia. I'm from El Paso originally. I moved back to my hometown just a little over 8 years ago. My career has been in the last 13 years with the National Park Service. Currently, I work as the Cultural Resource Program Manager, Tribal Liaison, and Anthropologist for Chamizal National Memorial and Gila Cliff Dwellings National Monument here in New Mexico. This is my third term serving as a board member, and I'm very pleased to do so, given that I grew up in the Upper Valley in El Paso and spent a lot of time along the river, many afternoons and mornings there. So I'm very proud to be here and to serve at this time here in Las Cruces with you all.
Hi, everyone. My name's Genevieve Allan, and in addition to being a board member, that's my first time on the board. I'm also a project manager and supervisor for the planning office of the Bureau of Reclamation in Albuquerque. So even though I'm in Albuquerque, most of my projects take place in this area. So super happy to be a member of the board and learn about all these topics with all of y'all.
All right, and I'm Katie Kruthoft. I'm with the New Mexico Department of Agriculture, and I work with the Soil and Water Conservation Districts.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, all board members. Do we have any board members online that want to introduce themselves?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Blanca Trout. I'm so sorry. I apologize. I couldn't show up in person. I don't feel good today. So, but thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be and serve in this board. It's my third term as well to serve as a part of the USIBWC board. I actually board member from the Canutillo Independent School District. I serve in that board as well. At NAMI, National Alliance Mental Illness. Also as Texas Partners and Policymakers for Individuals with Disabilities. I also participate in the roundtables of the Water Commission of New Mexico. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Blanca. Anybody else? Board members?
Hi, everyone. I'm Carla Mendez. This is my first term as a board member. I am an environmental microbiologist, so my research I specialize in water reuse and wastewater treatment technologies and conduct microbial risk assessments. And I'm also an assistant professor at UT Health Houston School of Public Health. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla.
Hello, my name is Alberto Jaramillo. I am a city council member for the city of Sunland Park. I represent district number 4. I worked as a board member with CRUA for 4 years and a half. Basically, that was one of my interests to join this board, given that there's issues with the water itself. Well, there had been some issues with the water itself. We're getting a lot better, but there have been some issues between the Mexico, the country of Mexico side, and the U.S. Some water coming into the U.S. and some other areas that we need some permits for jurisdiction, for infrastructure, for the city, for the water, and things of that sort. So that is where the reason why I wanted to join, because there's many things that need to be done that go with IBWC that I didn't realize. So this is my first time here at the board, and it's very interesting. There's a lot of things to learn, and it's been very good. At least the first meeting, going on the second. So thank you.
Thank you, Alberto. Cassandra?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Cassandra Hernandez. I am a District 3 city representative for the city of El Paso. I'm a lifelong Lower Valley resident, and I live less than a mile away from the Rio Grande. So very involved in the neighborhood tracks, census tracts, and irrigation efforts. I'm also a member of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is an El Paso Regional and Doña Ana County Regional Transportation Board. Happy to be here and welcome everybody.
Thank you, Cassandra. Any other board members online? Very good. I'd like to also acknowledge Commissioner Hined. I believe she is online. Commissioner? Okay, maybe she'll be able to jump on as we go further. Okay, so again, welcome everybody here who's in person, everybody who's online. As far as our agenda today, we're going to have a couple of guests. We're going to have a couple of presentations that are going to be presented, and there'll be an opportunity for question and answer on those. Then we're going to have an opportunity for public comment. I believe there's some around 10 individuals that have signed up to speak on the public comment section. And then we'll follow that with some board discussion and discussion about future agenda items, and then we'll conclude the meeting. We do have a hard stop at 8 o'clock, so we're going to try to push things through. So if we ask you to move along on your discussion or your comments, that's the reason for that. So while we're going through the presentations, I'd like to ask everybody to please raise your hand if you're here in person, if you want to have during the Q&A session, if you want to be recognized, and if you're online, to indicate again online by raising your hand online through the web app. Want to remind everybody also that this meeting is being videotaped, so it's being recorded, and that'll be available to the public. And then lastly, for everybody who's here in person, just want to make sure that you did sign in and write your name clearly on the sign-in sheet as you walked in. So if you haven't, when you go out, if you would just add your name and make sure you sign in. That way we can keep you on our notification list and update you on any future meetings or announcements, that type of thing. We would appreciate that very much. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sal.
All right. So we have two speakers are going to give us speeches. The first speaker, that would be the Deputy Regional Manager, Enrique Ornelas, the IBWC Upper Rio Grande Field Office. He's going to give us a speech on sediment disposal program updates.
Good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Enrique Ornelas. I'm the Deputy Regional Manager. I'm out of the El Paso, Texas area, the Upper Rio Grande Field Office. So my office encompasses Doña Ana County, where we have the Las Cruces facility, also El Paso County, where we have the American Dam, and then Hudspeth County, where we have the Fort Hancock office. So the topic of tonight will be the sediment that we remove from the river, but that we basically stockpile on the floodplain. And I'll show you why that mission is so important for USIBWC, because as we get heavy rains, these arroyos from the mountains bring down lots of water and a lot of sediment with them. So when you get a lot of buildup in the river channel, you get islands that begin to develop. These islands can become like plugs, and then like down in Fort Hancock, they can actually plug the river and change the boundary between the US and Mexico. So it's always, you know, a constant challenge of keeping the channel clear and getting the sediment out of that way. So I'm going to show you a few pictures here of what happens when that sediment is so much and it begins to plug the river up. So next slide, please, Frankie. So this is a picture of what happened in Hatch, New Mexico back in I believe it was 2006. As you can see here, this is courtesy of the Albuquerque District Corps of Engineers. So the town of Hatch literally flooded, and lots of this rainwater was heavy. A lot of arroyos were just overwhelming with sediment coming in, pouring into the river channel. And this is the kind of thing that happens when you get too much of it. Next slide, please. This is closer to home here, La Union, New Mexico. Here's a residential area, two gentlemen where the water was just up to just above their knee level. So this flooding is a serious thing, and it's a cause of the heavy rains and the arroyos that bring in all this sediment. So we came up with a program a few years ago. It was a document-based program where you as a customer, or if you have your own business and you're interested in this sediment or this free dirt, you would come to the field office that was closer to your home. So if you lived in Las Cruces, you would go to the Las Cruces facility off of Miranda Avenue. In Fort Hancock, you'd go to Fort Hancock. So you would fill out this form, take it back with you. At that time, we were asking for a plot, you know, just to be safe that it was your property. And so it took time. Once you brought it back, we would channel it through our headquarters for signatures, right? But it took too long. And so we came up with a new program to make this a little bit more streamlined. And so if you can show the next slide, please, I'll give you a little bit of an idea of what was the pre-existing program. You as a customer had to come to our field office. There was no two ways about it. You had to fill out the paperwork, and it required a wet signature. Once you turned it back into us, it required 4 more wet signatures. So it was just time consuming. And so it just wasn't, you know, really easy to track. We used to keep binders and we used to track it that way. It's just old school, right? So next slide, please. So we decided, getting together with our legal team, our operations and maintenance team, and our safety team, we came up with the QR code that you see on the lower right-hand corner. So we were looking to digitize this form, make it accessible to anybody that wanted this free dirt. And so we got rid of the wet signature, and this code makes it really easy to track, because what happens is when you fill out that application, when you take a photo of that or scan it, it'll take you to this form that you fill out, and it immediately goes to a website that our admin persons at each of these field offices can track. And they check it daily, and they can see what customers or corporations are applying for this sediment. So it made it much faster than it was before. And if you see the link down there, if you click on that, that'll take you to the actual form. But tonight, I'm just going to show you some of the pages just to compress time a little bit. Next slide, Frankie. So that's the first page that you're going to see when you scan that QR code. And it's going to ask if you're an individual, private citizen, or if you're a corporation, because it's two separate forms that it's going to guide you through. Next slide. So here you'll give your address, and this is important because this is where it's going to channel you either to the Las Cruces stockpiles of sediment, El Paso, or Fort Hancock. Next slide. So if you're in El Paso, this is the list of the stockpiles that we have along the floodplain. There's about 7 or 8 of them. You as the customer would click on the link that's closest to you. Now, if you're not familiar with these stockpiles or the locations, then our supervisors at this facility will gladly meet with you and take you there and show you. Now, I'm going to show you an example of one of these, what these links look like, because I didn't activate them. So if you were to click on this, and it's not going to take you anywhere. It's just for, display purposes. Next slide, please. If you live in Las Cruces, this is the location of your stockpiles right here. And again, the supervisor at Las Cruces would help you out if you're not sure where this is at. And then finally, next slide, Frankie. That would be Fort Hancock has only one stockpile, but it's enormous. Down at Fort Hancock, we have huge ranches. To give you an idea, 1 cubic yard of sediment, if you had a box that's 3 feet high, 3 feet wide, and 3 feet deep, that's 1 cubic yard of sediment. So just picture 300,000 cubic yards. That's how much the ranchers down in Fort Hancock are asking for. That's a lot of dirt. So Fort Hancock, luckily, they have one site and it's enormous. It's been stockpiled for years and we're moving it. Next slide, please. So when you click on either one of these links, this is a typical map of what the stockpile location would look like to you. So you see that red balloon, that's where the stockpile is at. So if you're not clear on its location, this is where our supervisors will come in and guide you. And when you get to this point, this is where you have a choice, and it's all free. There's no charge for any of this. We help you load it, or if you have your own equipment where you can come and load it, then we're just there to make sure you're doing it safely, but there is no charge whatsoever. Next slide, please. So these no-cost agreements is what these agreements that we came up with, that's what the form is really. I'm going to refer to them as NCAs. Back in fiscal year 22 and 23, we were on the paper system. And if you notice, very few of those documents were approved. There's a lot more behind them, but they weren't approved, so I couldn't really list them here. So let's say if you look at the American Dam in El Paso, we only had 3 that we could work with back in 22. As we move into fiscal year 23, each office only had 1, but there was a backlog of them because of the paperwork. When we went to the QR code, made it electronic, look at fiscal year 24. It just ballooned. This data is about 2 weeks old now, and we've been getting every day. We get new requests for new sediment from all 3 locations. So the QR code has been very, very successful, and it's speeded up the process incredibly. Next slide. So here is a picture of the cubic yards that have been removed. Now, this is the sediment that's stockpiled on the floodplain where customers have come and taken it. So in fiscal year 22, on the orange box, you'll see that was the goal, 50,400 cubic yards. And this is for the entire Upper Rio Grande field office. We managed to get just above it at 50,566. Fiscal year 23, the goal was 200,000, and we just exceeded at 219. Fiscal year 24, they keep upping the bar on us, and it's 250 now, 250,000. And now we're currently at 215,000. Our fiscal year ends September 30th. We're very confident that we're going to meet or exceed the goal, thanks to the QR code and the customers who have found it that's very easy to use. Next slide, please. So in fiscal year 24, these are the 3 field offices I talked about. Down where I'm at, American Dam, they've already hit about 134,000 cubic yards of sediment that's been removed, exceeded the goal of 100,000. Las Cruces, their goal was 50,000. They're still working on getting 22,000. They got 22,190 out now. And Fort Hancock, they're at 59,000. Now, the reason offices haven't hit their goal, like Las Cruces and Fort Hancock, is we're limited in staff. We have vacancies throughout the 3 field offices. We just started buying equipment back in fiscal year 22. We started ordering it. It took 300 days for companies like Caterpillar or John Deere to deliver this equipment. Remember, this is just after the pandemic. So even though we got our packages in, got them awarded, it just took time, And so what we're doing is we're shifting equipment and staff to the different field offices to try to beef up those numbers. So that's why you see that not all of them have hit it yet. Next slide. So here is a comparison of the corporate versus individual, because we were interested in how many companies versus individuals are applying for this free dirt. So in fiscal year 22, you see that Fort Hancock had none. Las Cruces, you had about 2 individuals that wanted this sediment. At American Dam, we had 2 corporations and one private individual. Fiscal year 23, we had 1 at each office. But check out fiscal year 24 with that QR code. It just took off. So Las Cruces, we have a equal number of corporate and individuals coming in and applying for that free dirt. American Dam, also the same thing. It's just ballooned. Fort Hancock, it's 2, but these are 2 very large ranches that are going to take a considerable amount of sediment. Just to give you an idea, it's going to take about a year for us to deliver to 1 ranch. The gentleman down there wants 300,000 cubic yards. That's going to take a full year for the facility staff down there to deliver that amount. And that would be working every day, full time for a whole year. Next slide, Frankie. So the strategy that we incorporated was, let's come up with this QR code, digitize the form, and present it at outreach, programs like this, the Rio Grande Citizens Forum, Stormwater Coalition meeting that we have once a month on the 3rd Thursday of the month. And then as well, our public affairs office was presenting this through social media. And so this has been a very good, code for us. We've gotten it out there, gotten the word out as much as we could, and people are responding. All of our internal emails will have that little code on the signature block, so that as we email with outside of the agency, people get to see that, and we make it clear it's free dirt. Just come get it, sign up through that code. Next slide. So the path forward. Number 1, heavy equipment. Last year we were able to get about, and it started in fiscal year 22. We bought 18 pieces of equipment, but it took 300 days per piece of equipment to get shipped out to our facility in El Paso. So this year we're looking about at 6 more pieces of equipment, and this is fairly large equipment that can move a lot of dirt. It's not like the smaller equipment that you might see around town. This is massive stuff. So our commissioner has been very proactive in assisting the field offices, along with our team in acquisitions and budget and finance. They've been great, and we've been able to get this equipment just as we need it. So we're still purchasing more. Catch up, by that I mean, I mentioned earlier these islands that form in the river channel. We have to catch up to some of these as they're getting bigger and bigger. We just cleared one large one at Highway 187, just north of here. And so that's the game plan. Get after there, get out to these islands. We have to be careful as well, because some of these islands are protected habitats. They become that because birds start to nest, and these are endangered species. So we're very careful with that. We work with our environmental division on that, but that's what we're up to. And on the final bullet, we do have a sediment strategy, which Ms. Yesenia Castro will give you a little bit more information on. Yesenia?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Yesenia Castro. I'm a civil engineer with the IBWC in El Paso. And just briefly, we are currently in the process of developing a agency strategy to address our sediment and deferred maintenance. And so this is really exciting for us as an agency, and our divisions are working together. And as we move forward in development, we will be talking about this with you in a future forum. So there's not a lot to talk about right now, but just a little, tease for future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next slide. So here's the code once again for, this will take you to this no cost agreement. Again, free, no cost whatsoever. Next slide, Frankie. And if you're interested in following our, USIBWC announcements, this is a separate code that Public Affairs Office has put out. You're welcome to scan that as well and just follow us, see what we're up to. Is there any questions regarding the sediment disposal? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Frankie, where's he at? Mr. Fisher. Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. Can we get a printout of the code? Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, sir. That's right. Yes. Yes. That's correct. We work with our environmental division. They, these islands form naturally and then they continue. And so they'll let us know which ones are available for removal. And that's where, because they check to see if there's bird habitats, we don't touch it, right? And so we try to get to them as soon as they let us know. We go through different permits and meeting for that. And so far we go after the large ones. Yes, sir, it does. That's correct. So there's areas of the river where we remove this sediment, we remove these islands, and the water conveyance, it just flows right through. And so the sediment buildup is what begins to divert it. That's how you begin to get some of that water out of the channel. So we're working hard to keep that channel clear. So you're correct. Yes, ma'am. It's a variety of uses. We've had contractors use them for leveling ground. Some homeowners want it also there's homes like in Anthony, New Mexico that are very close to the river channel, and they just want to raise the level of their land. We've had, and by the way, it doesn't matter if you just want a small amount for your garden, that's fine. There's no limit. I mean, we're not asking you to come in because we want large numbers. No, you can come in for a couple of pails of it if you have a garden. So don't be shy about asking for that. I mean, because some people have asked me, well, I just want a small amount for my garden. I said, cool, just submit, because we just want to give it away, because as we remove it, we're also removing more from the channel and stockpiling it. So the plan is to finally get most of it out of there. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. That's correct. That's a good question. I'd have to refer that to, I don't know if Mr. Masood, would you know?
Well, as far as the quality of the sediments from the river, it could vary from where the sediments have come in. If it come in from certain areas that has, more silt than sand, or what you described as sugar sand, it could vary. Like for us, I've used the program and I noticed how efficient it's become. We've used it for fill material, and we've tested some of it was actually suitable for, more structural fill under the roads. But as far as you using it for your garden, I would definitely encourage you to contact any of the agricultural extensions and take a sample, and they'll test it for you and tell you if it's, suitable or not.
We do, and that. We do have information on the removal, and that's going to be presented at the next Citizens Forum. As far as your second part, I'd have to check with our engineering. That's our engineering department that monitors the impact of when we remove this. Because we got areas, for example, up near Percha Dam, for example, there's a bend there where the water flows very, very turbulent. And so it erodes the edge of the river there. Yeah, but that's our engineering department that monitors that, and they come up with different schemes to, to keep those banks intact. You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Reached out to do that, and even in El Paso. So stockpiling the sand, stockpiling the sandbags, and I would say parking areas north and south of Sharon Sonic Bridge, perfect place. Pile sand.
Yes.
Purpose it instead of the park. Do that.
Right, yes. That's a good point, yes. And yeah, thank you. And we do have I guess it's every 2-3 years, we have the Elephant Butte Caballo Dam flood emergency tabletop exercise. So we do get to interact with a lot of the different departments. And so that's something that we can, definitely bring up. Yes, sir. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ornelas. And now we go into our second speaker, and that is our board member, Genevieve Allan, a Planning Group Supervisor, Water Management Division, Albuquerque Area Office, USA Bureau of Reclamation. And she's going to give us a speech on Reclamations grant opportunities and drought resilience efforts in the Rio Grande project. Genevieve?
Thank you, Sal. Next slide. All right, so today I'm going to go over a lot of Reclamation's investments in this area, particularly through our Water Smart program. A recent announcement that the Secretary of the Interior made about Inflation Reduction Act funding coming to the Rio Grande project, some of Reclamation's drought resilience efforts in the area, as well as a general overview of some of our additional grant opportunities. Next slide, please. So the Bureau of Reclamation has a variety of funding opportunities, and stakeholders in the Rio Grande and Pecos have been able to take advantage of these opportunities for really critical projects. And our most common funding opportunities come through our Water Smart program. And the map on the right shows the total Water Smart spending in each area. And you'll notice that the El Paso investment is much higher, and that's because they've received a lot of funding for the K. Bailey Hutchinson plant and related efforts. And for our current active Water Smart grants, the federal cost share is over $65 million, and the non-federal cost share is around $162 million. And on these figures, these are only the 2018 through 2023 data. So there's been additional funding in 2024. Next slide, please. So I mentioned recently the Secretary of the Interior announced that there would be some money coming to the area. So on May 10th, we were informed that $60 million of Inflation Reduction Act funding are going to be dedicated to drought resilience projects in the Rio Grande project. And this funding will go towards helping efforts to increase storage at existing sediment dams and new off-channel storage to capture stormwater, recharge the aquifer, and reduce irrigation demands. And hopefully to improve and create riparian wildlife habitat for threatened and endangered species, such as the yellow-billed cuckoo and the southwest willow flycatcher. And other projects will improve irrigation efficiency and to fund forbearance and fallowing programs. And this could save up to tens of thousands of acre feet per year. And I've added a link to the press release at the bottom. Next slide, please. One of our ongoing stakeholder collaboration efforts is the Rio Grande Project Area Drought Resilience Team, often referred to as DRT. And it was established by the state of New Mexico, Elephant Butte Irrigation District, and the Bureau of Reclamation in an effort to find proactive solutions to build resilience in the project water supply that's been impacted from prolonged aridification in the Rio Grande project area, overpumping of groundwater, and unpredictable monsoon flooding. And I have some of the objectives listed on the supply, but generally public safety, being able to capitalize on joint funding opportunities, supporting the habitat, and supporting water conservation. And I've listed some of the active agencies on the Rio Grande Project Area Drought Resilience Team. It's not all inclusive. There's a lot of agencies that are participating indirectly. Next slide, please. Towards the end of 2023, we entered into a 5-year cooperative agreement with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation for multi-benefit water conservation and ecosystem restoration projects. And these projects are generally off-channel storage, sediment dam enhancements, and demand management projects. And fortunately, we're able to capitalize on the expertise of our partners from the DRT. I appreciate all you that are here. All right, next slide. So for the next sections, I'm going to go over some of Reclamation's competitive grant programs. Next slide. So one of the main mechanisms that Reclamation uses to provide funding is our Water Smart program. And the general goals of this program are to conserve and use water more efficiently, implement renewable energy, investigate and develop water marketing strategies, mitigate potential water conflicts, and accomplish other benefits that contribute to sustainability in the Western United States. And this graphic gives an overview of the major categories of reclamation grants, but there are new categories that are being introduced regularly, especially due to the influx of funding from the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And I've included some useful links if you're interested in these. Next slide, please. So starting with our applied science grants. So this is for the development of tools and information to support water management. And it can take the form of new modeling and forecasting tools, hydrologic data platforms, and new data sets. There's a 50-50 federal, non-federal cost share, but the federal cost share can be more depending on the project. Next slide, please. We also have our Cooperative Watershed Management Program. And this program is intended to encourage diverse stakeholders to form local solutions to address water management needs by forming watershed groups and conducting planning activities for watershed restoration. These types of projects have no non-federal cost share, as they're intended to set up grantees to be able to apply for future larger funding opportunities. Amigos Bravos is one of the recipients, and they're continuing off of already established conservation efforts. And their cooperative watershed group is the Rio Fernando de Taos, which is a sub-watershed of the Rio Grande in Taos County. In addition to establishing permanent members for this group, they're going to be conducting various workshops, a full LID analysis of the area, and generating a report options for remedies and identifying critical sites for restoration. The Santa Cruz Irrigation District is a new stakeholder to us, and their watershed interest is from the headwaters of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains to the Rio Grande confluence with Española. And among other efforts, they seek to form a group to address issues such as reservoir sediment, and they're seeking to sustain or improve the reliability of the water supply under climate change. Next slide, please. So our next grant program is the Small Scale Water Efficiency Grants. And these have a 50-50 cost share, and the total project cost cannot exceed $225,000, and the federal cost share is not more than $100,000. So this is a relatively low dollar amount program in comparison to some of the others, and it has less intensive application and reporting requirements. And it's really intended to give smaller entities experience with applying for these grants, executing them, to set them up to be able to apply for larger grants. And the city of Las Cruces currently has one of these grants to create some system efficiencies for their irrigation system. Next slide, please. Water and energy efficiency grants. This is probably our most popular program, and it has a required 50-50 cost share. But projects under this program aim to conserve and use water more efficiently, increase the production of hydropower, mitigate conflict risk, and accomplish other benefits to support water supply. And EBID has one of these grants, And they're converting over 13,000 feet of open canal to corrugated metal pipe and installing more lift pumps. And this project is expected to result in over 9,000 acre feet of water savings per year, which is currently lost to seepage, general canal conveyance losses, and inefficient delivery quantities and timing. Next slide, please. So moving on to our water marketing and strategy grants. So this has a 25 to 50% non-federal cost share, and the ceiling of the awards are up to $400,000 for projects that can be completed in 3 years. And this program really focuses on water supply projects, water marketing activities, water management projects, and/or activities and river restoration. And this includes planning efforts as well. So the Rio Grande Water Conservation District in Alamosa, Colorado, they're conducting outreach and planning in collaboration with local groundwater districts in order to develop a water marketing strategy to maintain agricultural production in the San Luis Valley and prevent permanent dry up of historically irrigated land. Next slide. So our drought response program is for water managers to develop and update comprehensive drought plans and implement projects that will build long-term resiliency to drought. And some of these sub-programs include contingency planning, resiliency projects, and emergency response actions. And those are all competitive programs except for the emergency response actions. And that can include things such as water hauling in the case that water utilities are impacted. And then the non-federal cost share for this is 25 to 50%. And the New Mexico Acequia Association was recently awarded a grant to increase their water resiliency. Next slide, please. So one of our larger dollar programs is our Title 16 program, and this is for the planning, design, and construction of water recycling and reuse projects in partnerships with local government agencies. So under this program, there's water reclamation and reuse, desalination construction, large-scale water recycling projects, and smaller-scale water recycling and desal planning. And there's various levels of funding and cost shares with each of these. And so the example that I have on this slide is with the city of Santa Fe, and they received funding for their reuse pipeline. And the goal of this project is to allow the city to fully utilize their contracted San Juan Chama project water and to expand system flexibility. And they're expecting the compliance for this project to be completed this year. Next slide, please. Another program that we have is our aquatic ecosystem restoration program. This is relatively new. And it's really aimed at designing and constructing aquatic ecosystem restoration projects that are collaboratively developed, have widespread regional benefits, and can result in the improvement of the health of fisheries, wildlife, and aquatic habitat. And the non-federal cost share for this is 35%. And the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority was awarded one of these grants. And with this project, they're going to reconnect approximately 1,900 feet of the Rio Grande to its floodplain by excavating back the banks and allowing the water to stretch across the floodplain, which will restore the river's natural hydraulic processes and enhance habitat for endangered and threatened species. Next slide, please. Another exciting program that we have is our environmental water resource projects. And this is for water conservation and efficiency projects, water management or infrastructure improvements that mitigate drought-related impacts to the ecosystem, and watershed management projects or restoration projects. And the cap on this is $3 million, and the Chama Peak Land Alliance just received funding for a project where they're thinning over 2,000 acres of land to protect the source watersheds for both the Rio Chama and Rio Brazos from wildfire. Next slide, please. Another program that we have is our drought contingency planning, and it's just to help recipients to develop drought contingency plans or to update existing plans. And there's about a 25 to 50% non-federal cost share. And the Middle Rio Grande Conservation District has received one of these, and I've linked their 2016 plan at the bottom. Next slide, please. So the last program I'll talk about is our Basin Study Program. And basin studies are a tool to help stakeholders address and plan for water supply and demand imbalances. And through completion of these studies, Reclamation provides the technical assistance, tool development, and brings together competing interests within river basins to help identify collaborative solutions. Studies are funded at a 50% Reclamation and 50% all other stakeholders involved. So their combined contribution is going to be the 50%. And there's actually an ongoing Rio Grande Basin study from Lobatos Gauge to Elephant Butte. And part of this basin study is to set up different sectoral committees to help develop a report. And this includes the agricultural sector, community organizations, governance organizations, NGOs, tribes, and pueblos. And together they address water supply and demand, system infrastructure, values, baseline projections, and impacts within their final report. And next slide. So that's all I have. I don't know if there's time for questions or, yeah.
If anybody has any questions, and also much remind, if anybody online has any question, please raise your hand so we can see it. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Okay, I saw somebody else.
So I'm going to face these guys here because that's what one, it's great to see all the projects that are going on. That's really wonderful. And the folks that are out there doing the maintenance along the levee and in the floodplain, when they drive by my house, I always visit and talk with them. No, they do a great job. So a lot of my interest is from Shaolin Colony Bridge up to going north up in that area there. And I have seen places where we do plant trees and for restoration and all that. So you set a lot of projects up there, funding and all this is available. And I'm going, oh, great, this is wonderful. So I'm trying to take notes and I can't keep up, but really nice. But to plant more trees and all that. And so areas of interest that I see in the migratory bird paths that are along the river, like directly west of my house, there used to be lots of birds. There was an eagle back there for years, and all of a sudden it's disappeared. Well, it went somewhere else. But as far as, restoration about the drains that come off the farmers' fields, like just north of Shaolin Colony Bridge or Lujan Hill Drain, which is just north of Lujan Hill Road, those drains right there are wonderful opportunities to plant trees, do some restoration there, bring the wildlife back. I mean, we've actually had a mountain lion out there once before, and we've seen deer. I haven't seen deer in a while because they've been staying away. But in those projects that go on, and I don't know who maybe I should reach out to try to see how are these programs, because there were so many that you listed that I think these things just fall naturally into them. If we can do something along those lines, I think that'd be a wonderful thing. Okay. Any questions back to me? No?
I think that's great. I think one of the benefits of that cooperative watershed management program is being able to establish a group of a bunch of agencies and NGOs and partners that might also be interested in collaborating, applying through an entity for different grants. The Environmental Water Resource Project program seems pretty good, but it would definitely be great if we could share this PowerPoint with everybody because there's a lot of links.
Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Anybody else has any questions?
Can you hover over the people section so I can see who's raising their hands? Okay, go ahead, Blanca. I think you might be muted.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe you can help me to understand when you were presenting the energy efficiency grants, you said 50-50. Can you help me to understand this 50-50? Who's going to absorb the other 50? And is this by the state or federal fund? And which is exactly what kind of grants?
So this would be, this is federal funding. So 50% of the project cost would be taken on by the recipient of the grant. So say the Elephant Butte Irrigation District applied for it, they would take on 50% of the costs of the project, and the federal government would take over the other 50.
And okay, if this grant was awarded, what are the projects? What are they going to do with these funds?
It depends.
How are they going to use it? Yeah.
Well, they submit applications for it. So it would be for the project. So they'll write a scope of work, answer some pretty extensive questions. And so that'll all be included in their project. So it's really on a project by project basis.
Oh, it depends what do they need in order to improve their, okay, perfect.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Alberto?
Yes, thank you. So you mentioned water conservation and also the willow flycatcher. So here in the area, there's the I believe I have spoken to about this to a board last time. I've been looking for assistance and help and funding to be able to eradicate the salt cedar. That is an invasive species of tree, very harmful to the environment. It doesn't generate any fruit. It takes up a lot of water, and in return, it gives you salt. So it kills everything around it. It's a very, very harmful tree. So I know because of the lack of time, but I would like to get in touch with you because I would like to learn more about the kind of funding that's out there for this kind of project. I would like to start a pilot program in this area in Solon Park where we could not just remove but eradicate the tree itself and bring back the ecosystem, which is the Alamo in the area. I would like to, because of the bird that's endangered with the willow flycatcher, as I mentioned. Mr. Mesa, if you will be so kind to give my number, so she would. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto, and would love to get in touch. I will say, I know a lot of the soil and water conservation districts have been applying for grants from land management agencies. So even if our none of the grant programs I listed really match up, I'm happy to try to get you in contact with the right folks.
Thank you. And I've been actually talking to our senator, who is part of the Green Chamber of Commerce. The Green Chamber. I believe that's the Green Chamber of Commerce of the state, and she actually wanted to fund this, but we are far from the legislative session, so I'm looking for funds elsewhere also. So anything that could be of help would be wonderful.
Thank you, Alberto, and I'll make sure to get that information for you for Jen's contact information.
This is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody? Okay, with that, we move on to the next item. Gilbert?
Thank you, Sal. Thank you all for the presentations, very informative presentations, and for the participation with the questions and so forth. We really appreciate that. You know, the reason we're here is really to receive public input from the different areas within the IBWC's jurisdiction. So this is, again, really wonderful to see all of you here, and really wonderful to have your input and your questions and so forth. We're going to move on to the public comment portion of our program. I do want to clarify, I mentioned we had a hard stop at 8. It was actually scheduled for 8:30, so we're going to try to stick with that as closely as possible. We may run a little bit over, but because we want to make sure we get everybody's public input. For those of you that signed up, yes, sir, absolutely. So a couple of ground rules. We're going to limit the each speaker to a maximum of 3 minutes. So might give you a little warning that you've hit the 3 minutes, and if you could wrap up shortly after that, we would appreciate it. But we're going to try to accommodate everybody that signed up, and then see if there's any additional input from people online. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started on public input. If you would come up to the podium and just state your name and then share your comment, we would appreciate that very much. So I'm going to follow the order that I have here on my agenda for those individuals that signed up. So the first individual, Carol Edmonds, if you would come up. Ms. Edmonds.
I'm here tonight to address the IBWC about the park at Salem Colony and the Rio Grande Trail, the proposed trail. We're living in unprecedented times today. I don't think anybody would argue with that. Our country has changed and so has our county. 20 years ago, I would not have thought twice about a park close to my home, but our society has changed and we have some very serious issues evolving. Crime, homelessness, drug addicts are steadily increasing. Parks used to be a safe place for kids and their parents. Not so today. Parks have become havens for drug users and sellers and the homeless. I know so many parents that won't take their kids to parks. Besides, parks are kind of old school. Most parents these days take their kids to soccer, volleyball, ballet, basketball practice, and events. They have little free time for parks, so why build one? I want to remind the IBWC of the recent fiasco that was the Arroyo, Colorado. This was an area in Harlingen, Texas, where the IBWC gave a grant, or at least the land around the tributary, which is the tributary of the Rio Grande. They released it to the city, and the city built a walkway along the river against the protests of the residents that lived there. Soon after constructing that walkway, there was numerous drug users, sellers, people camping in the area. Soon they were jumping the fences and committing crimes against those that used to live a very peaceful life there. The city was supposed to maintain, but they didn't, and the vegetation blocked the flow of water, which caused floods. Crime got so bad, the police didn't even go onto that trail. They said it was too dangerous. I can't even fathom that. I spent 23 years as a police officer, and too dangerous was not in our work environment. There's much more to this story, like people with nothing to do, rolling stones into the tributary, blocking the flow of water. This has happened and can easily happen again. This is what most of us here tonight are afraid of. Please don't allow this to happen to another community. We must learn from the past and not make the same mistakes. This is not an isolated incident. You can find many incidents of problems with trails that were put along rivers. One being the Guadalupe River Trail in San Jose, another the Jordan River Park in Salt Lake City, and then up in Albuquerque, Coronado Park. They had to close that park due to the extensive damage done to the park, the facilities, the environment of the park, due to camping and illegal activities in the park. These examples are just tips of the iceberg. It is happening everywhere. Lastly, there's a neighbor of mine that lives 2 doors down from me. I live on Paradise Lane, that found a sleeping bag and piles of human waste in the bushes behind his house, 2 doors down from me. So it's already happening. It's already moving along the river. And on this past Saturday, we had a woman carrying several white plastic bags, ringing doorbells on Paradise Lane. When there was no answer, she proceeded to go through the garbage cans. She then walked onto the river levee northbound. And instead of walking on the River Levee Road, she walked right along the fences of all the neighbors, looking into the backyards. I was compelled to watch her until she went out of sight north of the flume, where they want to build the park. These occurrences will continue to multiply, and the Salem Park and Rio Grande Trail will only feed it. Please look up the public comments about the trail that's already been constructed, the Rio Grande Trail, already constructed down near Canutillo from Anthony to Sunland Park. Numerous comments about the trail not being maintained, but one comment in specific said, more alarming was the woman wrote, as a couple, it's fine, but I would not ride it alone as a woman. There are numerous problems at La Llorona Park for the residents that live across from La Llorona Park. And Frank, you know a lot of these problems because you've been dealing with them, and the poor residents that live down there. I just feel sorry for them, and I don't want to be one of them in the future if you allow this park and this Rio Grande Trail to come in. There have been people camping on the opposite side of the river, and down at La Llorona, they camped on the county side with no sanitation, and it's ongoing problems. I beg the IBWC to rethink the position in terms of the park and the Rio Grande Trail. The same thing can happen at the Shalem Bridge and to the residents living along the Rio Grande Trail. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edmond. Thank you, Ms. Edmonds. Appreciate your comment. Next is Deborah Houston. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Shannon Murray. Good evening. Hi.
My name is Shannon Murray, and I live along the river, and I oppose the river trail extension that they want to do from La Llorona Park all the way up to the proposed Shalem Colony Bridge. I also oppose that they want to put a trail head up West Wind Road and then over the levee that you all did improvements on for flood control. So I don't know how you're going to access that, but I'm against that. But something that this lady touched on that was awesome is the issue with the vagrants. In our times today, it is an ever-growing problem. And you guys mentioned a gentleman, let me see if I can find it in here. I'm going to leave this with you. But he's dealing with this from, what is it, the Upper Rio Grande? Let me get my glasses. Sorry, guys. Maybe I can have Olivia's 2 minutes. But there's a story that came out up in the Los Lunas Bulletin, and they're dealing with this exact problem. And I was at a county commission meeting with this gentleman right here, and they're understaffed. I don't know how you guys are going to handle this with Parks and Rec. But it's Mr. Zamora. He might be on this meeting with, oh my gosh, I was not prepared for, here we go. Middle Rio Grande Conservancy. There, you can find it online. In fact, I'll email you all this later, all you all here. But he's dealing with this right now, cleaning up the encampments. They're causing fires. Look up the Bosque Trail in Albuquerque, causing fires, cleaning up encampments. There are felons living in people's backyards. So this is not the time to do this. Find something else to spend that money on that the people here want. Thank you. They want, yeah, a water park or something that families will enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Appreciate it. Marcy Teague, please. Okay, and we'll make copies for the board as well. Thank you.
I came to address you all. They've heard me.
Okay.
So I'm going to face y'all. All right. I'm going to start with the list of questions that I have. And I would like to get answers for them, but I don't want to use my 3 minutes to get those answers. How far has the IBWC gotten with Doñana County on the Shalem Colony Park and Trail project? Have there been traffic studies completed? Have there been environmental studies completed? I understand that there are multiple restoration sites along the proposed path. How is Doña Ana County planning on preserving the affected restoration sites? Where will the funding come from for these studies? Is there a proposed safety plan for the area during and once the construction is completed? It has been understood from the Sheriff's Office that the current MOU, the Memo of Understanding, will be allowed to expire or has expired, which I understand that that is not the case because it will not expire. It is valid until either party terminates. Is it true that Doña Ana County Sheriff's Office will no longer patrol that area? And what can you share to that point? The current signs that list the activities that are prohibited yet are still highly active in the proposed area. How will the park be different? How will the park resolve these? Hunting, use of firearms, burning, dumping, camping, use of illegal and alcohol and illegal substances. All of that happens on a daily basis. We have residents that have it and have it happening in their backyards. We have homeless coming into people's backyards, going into their shops, their garages. I haven't heard of them coming into the homes, but I hope that I never do. I spent yesterday morning, having coffee very early with some farmers up in Hatch, and they are already dealing with these problems. All we're doing is proposing an artery for this to continue north. We need to stop this project. Are you aware of the immense opposition to this project? And I've provided you with 720 names in opposition to this project. I started the petition the day that we had the meeting, the community meeting at the East Picacho School. And from that point, it has exploded. And hypothetically, if this project were to be approved, what will be the timeline? But I don't even want to get to that point. So those are the questions that I would love to see answered. And for those of you in the audience, I don't know if you all have seen the master plan for the Rio Grande Trail Commission, Rio Grande Trail. It's very interesting, and we want to stop the project here. So I thank you for your time. Thank you very much for listening. And I can't wait to hear what everybody else has to say. Oh, I will also add, sorry, I don't know, I hope it's appropriate, but I am running for County Commissioner, District 5, as a write-in candidate. So any of you in District 5, I will be your voice for change in this county.
Thank you, Ms. Teague. We appreciate your comment and the questions you presented. We're not able to answer any of those questions, but we will make sure to pass those on to the IBWC and make sure that they are provided to them for consideration. Okay, yes, ma'am. Vic Villalobos? Villalobos? Perfect.
So I too in opposition of all of it. And so my question was a little loaded to you about the water situation. So I don't know what the actual official policy is of you all with people in the water, using it for recreation, as they do in certain areas. But, clearly it's becoming more and more of a hazard. Recently I was part of the team that pulled out the gentleman that drowned at La Llorona. We had a meeting this week with Sunland Park. They are pulling people out of the water almost daily. We're doing a training tomorrow that we have scheduled with Las Cruces Fire Department. And next week, we're going to be training with the Border Patrol all around water. And so my question was this about the water flow, because we used to train, we would have to go up to somewhere like Caballo to get that high flow coming in down. Now we get to do that at Shalem Colony because the flow's so high. And I actually think that flow was a direct result going into that man drowning a few weeks ago, because he was standing on an island that was not so deep, and the minute he hit that bigger current, that was never saw him again. And so one of our current county commissioners, his platform is you get to go swim at Shalem Colony like you used to when you were a kid, which honestly is probably one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. We don't get in that water without PFDs. We wear a helmet. I mean, we're really being careful when we go in there. And I think that you all as a board need to look at those safety concerns, and you know, we're gonna continue obviously to see a really increase in our flow of water and using that recreationally. Honestly, I wear a dry suit when I get in. I know the chemicals that come back into that water from the farmers and stuff like that. So I hope as a board, you all really look at that when you're dealing with the county, that not only are they wanting to build a park, I think they're thinking that this is the new water feature for the county to be able to put people in. And it's not a good idea. Trust me. It's the last thing we want to do is pull people out of that water. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Villalobos. Olivia Kirkpatrick? Ms. Kirkpatrick? Thank you.
Okay, so again, Mike Halleck, I'm gonna let you know where I live, 7915 Apache Canyon Drive. If you call Mesilla Valley Regional Dispatch Authority, ask them for a list of calls from me, from my home, relative to issues that have happened along the river. People shooting, people out there using drugs, camping, fire, just do that. There's a lot. By the way, I have plenty of photographs that I can show you because I can see a mile north and a mile and a half south. And I have no issues going out there to confront anybody behind my house at all. So you can see all those records. They're all available. One of the restoration projects or one of the levee issues, right? Hatch, FEMA came in and rebuilt that levee. It's a foot higher behind my house. And I mean, it's right behind my house. The thing is that the intersection, and I feel sorry for the your folks that have to work that levee. The intersection of Lujan Hill Road, Highway 185 is a wreck. It's been a wreck, and it's going to take quite a few thousands of dollars to fix that. They put gates up there at my request many years ago. But when you go north from there, that's the last sign that is posted that talks about all the things you're not supposed to do there. So the signs from that location at that intersection all the way to El Paso are up. I've looked at many of them, but going north, they're not there. They have the old little orange sign. The problem with that is that you are inviting people into that area up north. And now the fire or the sheriff's department has an issue where, hey, we're telling the public two different things. You can't enter here, you can enter up there. But again, I have no issues, you know, confronting anybody that's behind my house. I've seen oryx carcass out there, just disposed. I've seen cattle thrown out there. I've seen goats. You name it, I've seen just about it all. And I have photographs of all this since I've been living out there. So it's just something to add to it, to everything that they're all sharing. And there you go.
Thank you very much. Tiata Van Dam?
Hi, I'll be using my wife's minutes and my minutes.
Okay, so you're Arlen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I have a written statement from my wife that I'm going to read first. My family is against the proposed park and proposed walking trail project. Parks that attract families in the daylight often attract crime and vagrants when the sun goes down. Any park you go to, you have to remove used contraceptives, broken bottles of booze, feces, or drug paraphernalia before you can hope your kids can play safely. Walking trails meant to encourage healthy living and exercise have become alleyways for the homeless to camp and to defecate. Just this week, I witnessed a man in town bathing in an irrigation ditch mid-afternoon with his dog tied to a shopping cart full of possessions. Or mid-afternoon, with his dog tied to his shopping cart full of possessions, parked directly on the walking trail. 1 block further on the trail, another man napping in a shopping cart parked in some intermittent shade. This is the same walking trail that was put behind the family business on 17th Street in 2019. My family's business of 35 plus years has experienced more break-ins in the last 3 years via the walking trail than the first 30. The homeless are cutting the chain link fence and stealing anything they can. Extending the La Lorena walking trail will only encourage the same situations to follow the trail wherever it may lead. Once that population gets
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
That's okay. Once the population gets out here and realizes there's no resources for them, the crime will increase in our neighborhoods. The homeless are already camping out here illegally, defecating just outside our backyard fences, wandering into our garages, demanding rides back into town, knocking on our doors and rifling through our trash cans. And this happened just this last weekend, and I was out of town, and my wife was calling me pretty frantic about what was going on and nervous, and there was nothing I could do as I was back in California at a funeral. So, and they're going to steal anything they can get their hands on. The family parks also have been taken over by the homeless population, in addition to the criminal activity already found in parks. I have personally jumped and fled with my 3 young children out of a park after a man sat down nearby to watch my children play, began to undress himself, rope himself, then beckoned for my children to come to him. Sorry, it's a lot harder to tell everybody about that. I have been at another park for a kid's birthday party meant to end promptly at 7. And we saw the shift change happen where the young families that were playing during the day left, and then the vagrants entered, and there was no children that could be seen anywhere. I have friends whose kids' hands have been shredded by razor blades that were glued to the top of the monkey bars at La Lorena Park. Another friend whose son was left paralyzed after a drug dealer turned armed robbery at yet another park one night. A family friend lives next to Valley View Park, watched the playground equipment burn to the ground last summer. Investigators unable to determine the cause of the fire. It's blatant crime. Several of my friends used to enjoy a mom's exercise group at a park in the mornings until there were too many incidences of people doing drugs in the bathrooms, men blocking the restrooms, men recording inside of the women's restroom, human feces needing to be cleaned off of the slides, vagrants sleeping on the playground equipment, preventing access, caused them to relocate. I had the option of meeting our daughter's speech therapist at a park for her sessions, as long as it wasn't too early in the morning, because at 8 a.m., the homeless would still be asleep and spending the night before. I watched the dismantling of a once flourishing and beautiful picnic and garden area in the playground at Fair Acres Elementary School because it had attracted the homeless. They had been jumping the fence and setting up their tents in the schoolyard. All of our school playgrounds, for that matter, now have a 6-foot-tall fence around them with locked gates in order to help deter the crime and vandalism. I have grown accustomed to having to canvass parks for potential threats or questionable characters prior to even parking my vehicle so that my family can picnic or play. I have had to tell my kids not today so many times when they ask if we can play for a little bit at La Lorena, so that they don't even ask anymore when we drive by. Putting a park and walking trail at the Salem Colony Bridge will do nothing but attract more vagrants and crime to the neighborhood. Please do not allow this to happen. Oh, it's just, those are then a few notes from me. Just one evening, even I think it was just this last fall or last year, we were walking in the river and there was a truck that had started to do donuts and then it proceeded to flip. As I ran to go see what was going on, my wife had to stay back with the kids, call 911, and to keep them away just in case there were any potential injuries. Luckily, everyone was okay and with minor injuries, but people are consistently driving in the dry riverbed, eroding the banks that the IBWC has worked so tirelessly to build up. We purchased this house because we wanted to be away from the crowds and the noise of this city. We feel we've been good stewards and neighbors of your property that is right by our house. So,
thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Van Dam. Appreciate your comments. Jessica Richards. Ms. Richards?
All too.
Thank you.
I'm going to echo a lot of the same things. I'm choosing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to echo a lot of the same things that my friends behind me have said. I have chosen to stick specifically to your guys' posted signs. This is at the front of my road. I've already become a highway between West Picacho and the Salem Colony Bridge. I have video of people going 80 miles an hour down that dirt road, hitting the dip right in front of my house. I'll be honest, I'm praying that they damage their vehicle so bad they never drive down my street again. That street is only what, 32 feet from my front door. I have also had homeless men when my husband is gone. He is a Las Cruces Fire Department lieutenant. He's gone for 48 hours. That spans 3 days. Knock on my door explicitly, violent language, telling me if I don't open it, he's going to break it down. I moved a mile away from La Llorona Park. I live on the county side. And shortly after moving in, I met with Frankie Pignon of the IBWC. He was standing in my front yard, and I can remember the surprised look on his face when he saw the traffic going up and down Ray Lucchini. And I'll never forget when he told me that it's not supposed to be like that. There's only supposed to be approved vehicles going down that road, which then led me to start educating myself on the IBWC and what you guys do. He informed me at that point that of the MOU with DASO, and instructed us to call if we witnessed any of the rules that are clearly stated on the signs. I'm here to let you know that everything that's a violation on that sign happens all day, every day, any time of day. All I have to do is look out my kitchen window. My biggest concern is that the elected sheriff has stated in writing to a Salem Colony resident that if the park at Salem Colony Bridge is completed, she would move to separate from the MOU with the IBWC. I depend on that MOU to keep my family safe. On average, because I've actually requested my records for my phone number and my husband's phone number, how often we have called since 2019. It's on average 4 to 5 times a week, but I could call every day. So starting with the very first thing on here is motorized traffic is prohibited. Every person I've ever witnessed breaking any or all of these rules is in a motorized vehicle. Like I said, Ray Lucchini Drive has become a highway to avoid DASO because they're doing drugs or drinking. There's no hunting. Okay. Blocking the gates. What gates? There used to be a gate just north of my house. They run it over every time you guys put it back up, and it hasn't been fixed since 2020. They ramp their 4x4s and side-by-sides up the levee over and over. They don't use the ramps that you have constructed. It's fun. They're gonna test out their 4x4, their big lifted trucks. They wanna see how steep it has to be for them not to be able to make it. The use of firearms is prohibited. I have to call DASO just about every other day for this, though it does no good because they drive up, they fire 5 to 20 rounds, and then they drive away before I can get through the prompts to speak to a dispatcher. And of course, it's late at night and even my cameras aren't going to pick up their license plate. Burning in campfires on Monday in 101-degree heat, a group of 6 people fishing had a fire. There were 3 to 4 cars parked around them. It's not cold. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I've also come from a law enforcement family, and I've become what is known as a frequent caller. They know my voice. They know my phone number. They know who they're going to talk to before they ever answer. Dumping is prohibited. In the 5 years that I have lived at Ray Lucchini Drive, I have yet to see anybody clean up after themselves. It's funny because I see a lot of comments that, oh, one bad apple will spoil the bunch. Everybody that parks in front of my house is a bad apple, and that's not a coincidence. They think somebody's going to come and clean it up. They think it's part of La Llorona Park. It's not. And nobody's reading your signs. In fact, that sign that I showed you a picture of, I took a picture of it right after you guys put it up. It's vandalized. You can't read it anymore. So even if they wanted to read it, it's not doing any good. The use of alcohol and illegal drugs is prohibited, and that also happens every day. When we first moved in, we thought, oh, how great, we can walk down to the river and enjoy it and hang out with the kids. You can't go more than 5 feet without running into broken glass, used needles, drug paraphernalia, human feces. I won't even let my dogs go to the river, let alone my children. There have been 4 major accidents in front of my home that damaged the levee. 4 big brush fires just this year. And I'm here to say that it's not just homeless people. These are citizens trying to camp and start fires and walking up and trying to get into my house. They're not all homeless. I have to say that when those accidents were happening, it was a side-by-side that was trying to ramp the ramp. And I watched an 18-year-old child do a cartwheel and hit his own side-by-side 20 feet in the air. He walked away with a scratch because he was so drunk he didn't brace like a sober person would. Also Monday, after I saw the people who had their fire that were fishing, another person from Texas, presumably El Paso, decided to go off the levee, not where the ramp was, and get his pickup stuck. And somebody had to come and tow him out, which pulled their vehicle into the side of the levee and damaged the levee. And the sheriff was right there. So that's the other thing. Even when you call the sheriff, sometimes they just drive by, which tells all those people down by the river that they're allowed to be there because the sheriff isn't stopping to tell them that they need to leave and they're not getting cited. I guarantee you put an $80 fine on every person that gets stopped by the sheriff, they'll stop coming down there. That's a solution that I feel is not outrageous, but would show that we're serious. And outside of that, putting up a locked gate and only residents have the key to get down the levee.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. Appreciate it. The last person who signed up to speak is Carmen Kinahan.
I apologize for not signing up to speak this evening. I had the opportunity and didn't take it. Thank you so much for giving your minutes to me. Carmen, in case we're not picking up what's being laid down here this evening, I want to reiterate a couple of things. Number one is nobody wants this park. What I would like to say, and maybe it's something that we all need to be cleared up on a little bit, is perhaps one of you could real quick tell us what the International Boundary Water Commission, or whatever it's called, what is your jurisdiction? Is it levee road to levee road?
We're going to have a speaker from the IBWC, their attorney, make some comment after you speak. And so I think she can answer those questions.
Okay.
Could I get your name, by the way?
I'm sorry. I'm Ned Tudor, 4665 Riverwood Road. My backyard abuts the levee road.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And the proximity is West Wind Road. West Wind ties into Riverwood. So the statement that I would like to make kind of concerns that jurisdiction. If the jurisdiction that you, as board members of the International Boundary Water Commission, if that jurisdiction is part of what is being proposed, which I believe that it is, for a walkway to continue from La Llorona Park up to Shaling Colony and possibly beyond, as the gentleman back here stated earlier. It seems to me that you as a board could simply say to whoever is proposing this park, no. I would encourage you, with the number of signatures that Marcy referred to, which was over 700. And I'm not real sure I got my name on that. Make it 721, okay? Okay. I'm pretty sure that we can clearly say to you as the board, please hear us and understand that in your jurisdiction, this does not need to happen. We don't want it. We definitely cry out for the safety of our children. You can hear from all of the things that were expressed tonight, which horrified me. And I'm somebody that lives on the river. Some of these things I've seen for myself, and La Llorona Park to me is kind of a demonstration of what we would be reliving again if we allowed this park to be at Shalem Colony Bridge. So here it is, long story short, use the jurisdiction that you have, please, and simply say no to this proposition.
Thank you all very much for your input, your comment, and your sharing your thoughts, your feelings about this proposed park. Just so you know, we're a citizen advisory board, so we don't have authority to make any decisions, but we do provide a forum for you all, the citizens, to speak up and to provide input, and then we make sure that that gets carried on and shared with the IBWC leadership. But if we could have the attorney from IBWC make a few comments, Ms. Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Rizzuti. I'm one of the attorneys for IBWC. So first I want to make clear, this is not an IBWC project. We were approached by the county. They're the proponents of the project. We have not even gotten a formal application from them. So we don't know what the design looks like. We don't know what the parameters of the project look like. So once we receive an application, we look through it, and there's typically a lot of feedback between IBWC and the proponent about what we'll allow, what we won't allow, put structures here, put vehicle barriers here, do this, do that. So that it's not like we get a proposal and then we stamp it. There's a lot of back and forth with the proponent. I came up here to answer your questions because you asked several and didn't want to use your time, understandably, for answers, but I don't remember them. You're going to have to repeat them to me. Sure. Okay, so number one, how far has IBWC gotten with Doñana County on the Shalem Colony Park and Trail project? We haven't received an application. So once we receive an application, our process is, again, all of our divisions review it. Our engineering division, our hydraulic division, our environmental division, our budget division, our security division, they all review it. And then we go back and forth with the proponent about comments on their project. So we haven't gone anywhere. We haven't received an application. We did, I think, look at their scope of work to hire someone to design and let them know what we would require as part of a packet. But we don't know, we haven't received a formal application. Have there been traffic studies completed? Where will the funding come from these studies? That's all the county. I imagine there will be traffic studies that will be done as well as environmental, but the proponent typically funds all of those studies that need to be submitted as part of the packet. Restoration sites. Once we see the scope and the parameters of the project, we'll address restoration sites. I know we have a park on our land that the city of El Paso has down by Country Club Road. And there are restoration sites in there, as well as there's a Sunland Park, city park along the river that has some restoration sites. And we've been able to protect those restoration sites from the people that use those parks out there. So I imagine if there's restoration sites in the layout of this park, we do the same, or maybe ask to have the park avoid those areas. I don't know yet. We won't know until we see a proposal. Safety plan, again, that's something that we could ask for as part of the packet. Let's see, understood from the sheriff. And we can certainly ask for the, right. We can certainly ask for safety and security plans as part of the packet. And as a matter of fact, I think some of our leases, like maybe with La Llorona Park, we have some provisions there that Las Cruces Police Department has to respond to issues out there. MOU. So the MOU we have with the Sheriff's Department will not expire until one of the parties terminate it, and that's true. Yeah, I think she said that she does not have the resources to patrol this park. So, I mean, that's an issue. Again, resources for the sheriff and how to provide funding to the sheriff is a county issue that we don't get involved with. I understand, and we hear your concerns. We try to treat every applicant that comes to us the same. And so any local government that comes to us with a packet, we're going to entertain that packet and process it the same as we would for any other local government. This is not the first park that we've been approached with. This is not the first park we have in our area. So I don't know that we've denied any. So you need to work with the county. You need to work with the proponent to address your concerns. Once, I imagine that if there's an environmental study done with this, there'll be public input during the environmental portion. We've heard that. We've heard that. Understood. I understand. Well, that's something we'll consider when we get the packet. So, I can't comment on something we haven't seen, so. Right. And And this is not something that happens overnight. Like I said, this is a process. We haven't received the application yet. There's probably going to be studies, environmental studies and traffic studies. So there'll be a lot of opportunity for you guys to have your voices heard and to gather more support. Come again?
Environmental impact studies. You think that once this was reported and they paid millions by the report, they would care?
I haven't seen that. Okay.
Architecture for
We haven't gotten an application for this. So we look at what we get applications for. So I can't speak to who developed this or why we haven't seen it. Okay. So I can't speak to why it was paid for and we haven't seen it, but we have not received an application for the park that you are all talking about.
they put this like down. I have been told people who are living homelessly on the river are either drug addicts that refuse treatment at places like the facilities available on Amador, or registered sex offenders because they're not allowed into places like the Gospel Mission. This is really tackling, folks, and we are begging you, because the people with the most money have already filed their final report. These thoughts.
Excited because I'm going to do something for all of us.
Okay. Okay.
For the Boundary Commission, okay? So that's who she's going to respond to. Now, who do we need to respond to? Ready? This is federal. This is a federal issue. They're federal, okay? So we need to talk to our senators, the county, not the state representatives. We got to go to the federal. That's where we got to go. That's who we take this fight to with them, okay? And make sure that they know what our concerns are. That is the most, and it's somewhat difficult, but it's also a process. That's where this has to go, okay? Everything, they're hearing us, and they're absolutely right. This board cannot make it, they cannot make the decision. It's not their call. They, as far as jurisdiction, the jurisdiction is by, who's the head of what, I forget the title of them.
Commissioner?
The commissioner, yeah, the commissioner is the one who holds the signature, okay? And that signature will come out based on what attorneys and all the other things that these people do say, is this a good decision or is this not a bad decision? Okay? So our fight here, telling them here, this is good, it's on record. We're all there, right there, okay? A lot of stuff to back this up. Now, we need to take this to our federal representatives. That's who these guys are gonna listen to. They will have to answer. I promise you, they will have to answer every one of your questions if you give them to the Senate. They'll have to answer, okay? Yeah, you got to take it to the federal level, okay? Yeah, I know them too. All right.
So I'm saying, yes, I came up to answer your questions, and if you have more, I'm happy to leave my email address. You guys can contact me and I'll try to answer your questions as you send them to me, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
It's difficult. Okay, so just let you know that, but the MOU, said, if it stays there, if somebody decides that they want to be part of it, but I'll let you know one thing. The adjudication process on the memo is the district attorney to sign it. It's so okay.
Thank you all for that great input that y'all provided. Really appreciate it. And we will do what we can to make sure that this information and your comment gets shared with the IBWC as much as we can. So thank you again. Absolutely. So.
That makes us move to next item. I guess if the board has anything to discuss. Or can we discuss what we need on the next agenda? Anybody has any suggestions?
Hello, I do have a suggestion. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Blanca Trout, and I would like to ask to legal, Rebecca. I'm so concerning about, all the issues that has been going on in the river as well. Until which point it is our jurisdiction to request, to ask, is there any safety and security plan from IBWC at the river? And if there's one, I would like to see it, and maybe in the next agenda. Can we ask that, Rebecca?
Rebecca, you want to answer that?
So I don't know who I'm talking to. We have a security division, and the majority of their focus are on our critical assets like dams. I should say we have a very small security division. And so the majority of their focus is on our critical assets like our dam. We have international dams and dams that control the distribution of water from here down all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. As far as the land around the river, we hold it like a private proprietor would. We have what's called concurrent jurisdiction. What that means is that state and local law enforcement can come onto our land and enforce state and local laws as they would a private landowner's land. However, some of the crimes there could become federally prosecuted crimes because it is federal land. But we do not have we're not staffed or authorized for law enforcement beyond our critical infrastructure, which is our dams. I think we can get our security division to come present about themselves at the next meeting, if that's what you guys want to put.
Yeah, will be great. If someone from the local, the law enforcement, they could come and perform something and present, safety and security, what's going on. I know that is not from the IBWC, but we could invite some presenters and help these people to, clarify a little bit their questions, because this is so concerning and it's something that we need to address. They think it's our jurisdiction, which is good that you already explained this, but maybe we could have someone, law enforcement, some LEOs, to come and talk to us in regards to that issue.
And because we're so, we don't have like BLM has their own police force, Forest Service has their own police force, we do not. We've tried to use MOAs and MOUs all up and down the river to have local law enforcement acknowledge that they can come onto our land and enforce the laws. That already exists without the MOA. What the MOA really does is say, we will help you with the prosecution of people that are caught on our land. We will show up as witnesses. We invite you onto our land to enforce the laws, and we will cooperate with the prosecution. That's really what the MOAs are intended to accomplish.
So then let's go ahead and have something like that for the next board meeting. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I don't know what do you think, board? This is something that we need to present overall. You know, there's a lot of complaints and worry about the community, not only in Mexico, New Mexico, Las Cruces, here in El Paso as well. And it's something that we need to address. If we could bring it a presenter, you know, a local law enforcement, and tell us a little bit about what they can do and what is the plan.
Yes, ma'am. Point agreed. Hello? Yes, ma'am. Point agreed. And we will make sure that this item will be presented. Frank will make a point of that we will get somebody to present and address the security issues along the river within the jurisdiction of the IBWC.
Beautiful. And one more point, the activities and hours allowed in summertime at the river as well. I think it goes hand by hand, you know. And if we're going to have, you know, shooting or the dogs hunting, and what kind of motorists they could be in the river. Also, along with this, that it could be clarified with the posted signs that we have. Maybe someone from the IBWC, they could go and send some, I don't know, some crew and check all the signs that we have. The lady, she was saying they were vandalized. So maybe it will be great idea that authorities from the IBWC, they send someone and check all of those, you know, along the river that we have here close by. And like I said, activities allowed at the river in summertime and hours.
Yes, ma'am. We'd like to move on, ma'am, to another point, but all that fall under the umbrella of security, and we should have that all addressed in the next board meeting. We'll address all these issues. All falls under the umbrella of security. Okay?
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, you have a suggestion? Go ahead.
For next.
Yeah, in the microphone.
Yes, Mark Calamia, board member. I have a suggestion for our next quarterly meeting here as a topic somebody could present. It would be something that I don't believe the board has had in a long time, if ever. And since this is a binational agency, I would be interested in seeing the IBWC counterpart, SILA from Mexico, come and present on their efforts to engage in riparian production and protection, riparian protection and habitat restoration.
That's actually very interesting. And I would think that would go under the same thing, like protection of the levees on their side from security standpoint, or you just talking about from restoration and preservation? And
oh, no, this question is focused almost solely on environmental protection and restoration.
Okay. Can we make a point of that, Frank? Thank you. I'd also like a suggestion if we could talk again about the levee restoration and the efforts with FEMA on the certification of the levees and the construction progress of that and how's that coming up? Anybody else has any more suggestions on the board?
Sal, I have a suggestion also, since the recent decision by the Supreme Court to not approve the settlement between Texas v. New Mexico on the Rio Grande. If it'd be possible, it's maybe not for the next meeting, but at some point to have it would be great if for the next meeting because it's recent, but basically an update from someone who could inform us of what the next steps are because of that years of litigation. There was finally a tentative agreement, and then it was basically tossed out by the Supreme Court. So they're back to square one. So I think it'd be very informative to understand what the next steps might be.
Thank you, Governor. That does sound very interesting. At least just a quick update as to what the issues are and what are the results are.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else has any suggestion from the board here or online? Okay, if not, entertain an adjournment.
We need to agree on a tentative date maybe for the next meeting,
Oh, that's correct.
next quarterly meeting.
Frank, when would that be, the next meeting, last meeting of the year? 4 months from now. Okay. So in 4 months from now, folks, you're welcome to join and get an update on the security. And hopefully we can get, more information on that project. If we got an application from the county on the trail and the park. Frank, is there a way that could be posted online where if they log in? Yes. Thank you guys again for everybody. They're patient in the beginning with the IT issues and we appreciate all your comments. And like I said, we're an advisory board. Your voices are heard and I'm sure it will make an impact on the next decisions coming up. Thank you.
Thank you all. Sal, I echo all that. And I also want to thank Doña County for allowing us to use your facilities and appreciate all the Doña County staff for all their efforts in getting this set up and providing us the internet coverage and the sound system, et cetera. So thank you all very much. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.